Oh, look at that. You get a nice new little title screen after you beat the game. I forgot about that almost. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Play Megaman Battle Network Operate Star Force. In the last part, we beat the game as signified by this cute little star mark on the title screen. But now starts the post-game, which is a grind for the series no matter what, but especially so in Battle Network 1 because it's all there is to do. We have 61 battle chips still to get, several of which are Navi chips, some of which are just chips that didn't drop from certain viruses. Either way, we have a lot of fighting ahead of us to get those last 61. Starting off, we're going to focus on namely the Navi chips we can get in the surrounding areas and on the internet, because that's arguably the hardest part per individual bit, because a lot of the ones I have to get still are the V2 chips of a Navi, and in some cases V3s, which are genuinely harder to get than the V3s, because V2s you just have to fight well, or V3s you just have to fight super well. V2s you need to fight well, but just not as good. And there's something about that that is genuinely harder to do when you're so used to how the game works. With that said, I think it's finally time for us to talk more in depth about busting rank, because throughout the main game, I feel you don't really need to know how it super works. It's just a lot of experimentation with chips and figuring out what works for you. But now that we're going exclusively for a chip grind, I feel it's the right time to talk about how it actually works behind the scenes. Obviously, we know it's calculated on a rank of 1 through 10 and S, S being the highest. But the way it calculates what your rank is within that is via 4, technically 5 criterion, which all give you various points depending on how well you do within it. In order to get an S rank, you need to get 10 or more points out of those criteria. The 4, technically 5, are deletion time, but there's different tables for virus and Navi deletion times. Flinching, or how many times you've been hit. Multiple deletions, aka killing more than 2 viruses at once, or 2 or more. And movement. For the exact math of that, let's start with movement. Essentially, if you move 3 or more times in Mega Man Battle Networks 1, 2, 4, or 5, you don't get any points in this category. But if you take 0 to 2 steps, you get 1 point added. So a really good way to help with busting ranks against viruses is to have chips like Sharkman or Gutsman and just take them out without moving a single step. Multiple deletions will also count for this, because if you delete 2 viruses at once, you get 2 points added to your score. And if you take 3 out at once, you get 4. In one game, you can also get 4 viruses out at once, but there's only really one game you can get 4 viruses out, and that's Battle Network 5. Flinching, I say it's you getting hit, and that's technically true, but in later games, it's more so outright flinching from getting hit. So if you use the Super Armor Program Advance, or not Program Advance, Navi-Cuss program, you can help with that. If you're never flinched, you get a point. If you're flinched once, you get no points. But if you get flinched 2, 3, 4, or more times, it is minus points to your overall score, 1, 2, and 3, although I think it stays at 3 from there on, meaning the worse you actively get hit, the worse you're gonna do. Now we get into the deletion time requirements, which is a bit more precise. By the way, that was me buying some battle chips that I couldn't get here before. Let's start with the viruses. If you delete a virus in just over 36 seconds or more, you get 4 points added to your score. If you get between 12 and 36 seconds, you get 5. Between 5 and 12, you get 6. But if you delete a virus in less than 5 seconds, you get 7 points to your score. Meaning, a really good way to get an S rank is to beat it with a single Navi chip in less than 5 seconds, because that'll probably kill 2 or more viruses, and you'll never be moving, so that will give you 7, 9, 10 points pretty easily. For Navis, admittedly, S ranks are a little bit easier in terms of the actual criterion involved in them. Because they're more involved patterns, they skew the points more towards Navi deletion time. If you take longer than 50 seconds to delete a Navi, you get 4 points. Between 40 and 50, you get 6 points. Between 30 and 40, you get 8. But if you delete a Navi in under 30 seconds, that is an instant 10 points. Meaning you just need to either not get hit too many times. Actually, no, that's exactly it, and you'll get an S rank. Battle Networks 3 and 6 notably changed the score values a little bit, because they added in a couple of other mechanics and variances that added or took away points. As did Mega Man Battle Network 4.5 Real Operation, which was a Japanese exclusive GBA game that I might go over eventually, I don't know. But the important thing to note is, see if you can just not get hit and do it in less than 30 seconds for boss fights, and do it as soon as you can and hit multiple viruses at once for virus battles. Internalizing that and getting really used to it is going to be the key thing. But at the same time, then you start getting into drop rates, which is an entirely different bag of worms. Before I get into that, I should note as well, busting rank is also technically calculated for PvP matches that you can do through the menu, which I have very little experience of outside of fighting myself in the later games via emulators just to help get myself some extra battle chips. And there's an entirely different calculation set for that, though I forget if that plays into Battle Network 1 at all. Just in case it does, your busting rank in multiplayer in Battle Network 1 would be based off of 3 criteria, if it's anything like it works in some of the later ones, which are deletion time, remaining HP, and recovery uses. It's still the same if you get 10 points, you get an S rank, though. If you finish in over a minute, you get 4 points. Between 45 seconds and a minute is 6 points. Between 30 and 45 is 8. In less than 30 seconds, like with Navi fights here, is 10 points. Remaining HP, if you have less than 50% of your health, you get no points added. Between 50 and 74%, you get a single point added to your score. Between 75 and 99, you get 2. And if you didn't get hit the entire time, technically, if you have 100% of your health more accurately, is plus 3 points. But that plays into the recovery usage mechanic, where if you use no recoveries, your point is not, your score isn't impacted at all. For every recovery you use after that, though, it is impacted. If you use 1 recovery, you lose a point. If you use 2, you lose 2. And if you use 3 or more, you lose 4. Again, I think that applies to this game. Other games would later influence things such as HP differences, where if you have the same amount of HP, it's not a positive impact. If the opponent has more HP than you, you'll gain points. But if you have more than them, you'll lose points. And this is just talking like HP memory, base HP counts. Again, multiplayer really doesn't matter, especially in Battle Network 1, so it's not really worth discussing in any in-depth matter. It would probably be fun if I had friends to do it with back when, but I really didn't because I was the only Battle Network player I knew of around the area. So that was unfortunate, but oh well. With that said, now it's time for us to start tackling the internet for various battle chips. In particular, I want to start going over to Internet 3 because I think I have to fight Stone Man around here for his battle chip. And at this point, it's going to be a little bit of a garbled editing mess, because I have to obviously show when I not only get a battle chip that I actually need in that area from a virus, like I need the B-Tank 2's Line Bomb battle chip, I believe, but I'm also looking for Stone Man. If I get Stone Man once, I'll show him then, but if I fail getting his battle chip, I'll probably end up just intercutting with another virus. Battle Network 1's post-game is basically nothing but just grinding and fighting endlessly. Especially for Zenny, because I still have to get some HP memories throughout the game, because I'm not at max level yet. Battle Network 2 Beyond would spice up their post-games by adding exclusive areas you could only access during it that usually had some of their own little mini plotline going on and things like that. And it's for the better, because I feel it makes for more short-term goals in the post-game. As with games like this, you run into the problem of having one long-term goal, yes, but not enough short-term goals if the game isn't balanced correctly. And I feel Battle Network 1 doesn't have enough short-term goals, if any, really. Your goal is to just get all 175 chips. And because of that, it becomes the least interesting post-game in the series. Not the worst post-game in the series. I would argue that's Battle Network 4's due to its own problems. But it's definitely the least interesting. With that said, I brought up levels a bit earlier when getting HP. I haven't really talked about what level Megaman is throughout the game, other than that one level gate you have to get to in order to access the end game, where you have to be level 30. This is technically more prevalent, again, later on. But the way that the levels are calculated here in Battle Network 1 is, at base, Megaman is level 1. With every HP memory you collect out of the 45 in the game, you raise your level by 1 point. So by getting every HP memory in the game, Megaman is default level 46. Power-ups out of the 12 you get in the game raise his status by 3 points. So if you just get all of those, you will be 12 times 3 is 36, level 37. And the armors also influence that. Each one of the 3 raises your level by 6 in the GBA version, and that will all math up to level 99. But obviously here in Operate Star Force, we don't have the armors. So instead, now your level is partially tied to your library completion. In fact, to get to level 100 itself, you need the very last battle chip in the game. So in a way, level in this game is closer to being looked at as a completion percentage in and of its own right in some regards. And there is something interesting to that aspect of it, but yeah, Battle Network 2 Beyond and 3 just dropping levels period at some point, I believe, was where they started doing that, was probably for the best, because the level doesn't really actively do anything aside from, again, act as a little bit of a level gating to make sure, okay, you want to get to this point in the game, you need to have all this done. Now, the reason I'm starting with going after the Navis is that they are technically a short-term goal, and I feel in their case, because they are generally one of the rarer encounters in their given area, usually like a 1 in like 8 chance, I think, it's better to start with them and then methodically comb through each of the internet areas bit by bit, looking for the viruses that have the chips I still need. And because of that, there's going to be times in this post-game where I just jump from one internet area to a completely different one. And the admitted bonus of the DS version because of this, you'll be able to tell where I am at all times because the map is always on the bottom screen, even in battle. So if you ever get confused on where I am and what I'm grinding for, just look on the bottom screen. You'll probably at least understand a bit more about what I'm doing in that regard. I've seen playthroughs of this game's post-game where explanation is lacking, to say the least, and because of that, it's really hard to follow it as a guide. And I'm trying to make it so that you can potentially follow this as a guide yourself, but because Battle Network is so execution-heavy for getting chips in the post-games, there's gonna have to be a little bit of an adaptation there yourself. In the case you are using this as a guide, and things aren't too clear, I'm sorry. I'm trying my best, but games like this, a little bit rough. But hey, we've already made some good progress. We have already gotten, what was that, 13 battle chips just through getting the Navis I've gotten thus far. And we still haven't even fought the second Magic Man thing, which I think in Battle Network 1 is the main thing you get from saving the completion file at the end of the main story. Later games, when you do that, the star you get on the title screen actively allows you to open, like, a particular door to go to the post-game areas and all that. But Battle Network 1, due to its internet being laid out the way it is, doesn't have a proper post-game area. So you don't have to worry too much about that outside of not being able to get the Magic Man chip, I think. You might not be able to fight the super boss at the end, now that I think about it too, if you don't have that, but you need the last chips to do that anyway, so I guess? Admittedly, though, I look back, I can't help but wonder how some people found some of the chips in these games, because some of the viruses are so rare and require such high ranks to get their battle chips that I guess the only way we could have easily known about them is the old, like, Brady Games strategy guides and stuff, which I never had for any of the Battle Network or Star Force games. If I got a strategy guide, it was usually for, like, a console game like Wind Waker. No, actually, no, because I did have the Soul Silver and Red Rescue Team ones for Pokemon. I never had any of the Battle Network ones, is the bottom line here. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 24, the post-game grind continues for the first time of many, I think. See you guys then.